Okay, so let's take a look at another example of factoring a quadratic expression where the leading coefficient is not 1. So that's going to be, or for this example, we're going to take a look at 4x squared plus 5x minus 6. So just like always, for this type of problem, we put our big X over here, and then here we have positive 4x squared plus 5x minus 6. So that tells us that something here is going to be negative, and the other one's going to be positive. Okay, so 1 negative, 1 positive, just like in the previous example, really, 1 negative, 1 positive. Okay, so what goes up here? Well, 4 is 1 times 2 times 2. Okay. And what about down here? Well, 6 is 1 times 2 times 3. So what we want to do is multiply these numbers together to get two different numbers, so that so we're going to have minus and then plus, and then when we add these two numbers together, we're going to get positive 5. Okay, so there's a few different things we could try. Let's go ahead and try this. 1 times 2 is 4. 1 times 2 times 3 is 6. Is that going to work? Well, what if we did minus 4 and plus 6? Well, minus 4 plus 6 is 2, not 5, so that's not going to work. What if we did minus 6 and plus 4? Well, minus 6 plus 4 is negative 2, so that's also not going to work. So we basically just have to try something completely different. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll try multiplying in a different way. So get rid of that to make some more room. So what's another thing we could try? Well, let's go ahead and try 1 times 2 times 2 times 2. Okay, so here we have 1, 2, 2, and then another 2. That's going to give us 8. And then here we have 1 times 3, which is just 3. Okay, so that uses all the numbers, which is the requirement. And then what if we did minus 8 plus 3? Well, that's going to give us minus 5, which is not what we want, but what is going to work is minus 3 and then plus 8. Okay, so minus 3 plus 8 is going to work because minus 3 plus 8 gives us positive 5, so that's exactly what we want. So let's go ahead and use that then. And how are we going to use that? Well, we're going to use that to split up 5x into minus 3x plus 8x. Okay? And then just like before, we're going to factor by grouping, so let's go ahead and do that. So now this becomes 4x squared minus 3x plus 8x minus 6. Okay, now if we factor by grouping, what are we going to get? So let's look and see. Okay, group these two guys together, group these two guys together, and separately factor using greatest common factor method. So let's go ahead and make some room down here and get rid of that. And we'll come off to the side down here, and we'll look at 4x squared minus 3x. So 4x squared minus 3x, what's the greatest common factor there? Well, the greatest common factor between 4 and 3 is just 1. The greatest common factor between x squared and x is just x. So the GCF of the whole expression is just x. Now what happens if we pull an x out of there? Then what we're going to end up with is, so if we have a 4x squared and we pull out an x, then we're left with a 4x. Then here, minus 3x, if we pull out an x, we're left with the minus 3. So then what we have so far is x times the quantity 4x minus 3. Okay? Now what about the rest of this? So we'll come back down to the side separately again, and we'll look at 8x minus 6. And what's the GCF of this expression here? So between 8 and 6, the greatest common factor is 2. And here's an x, here's no x, so the greatest common factor for the variables is technically 1. So 2 times 1 is 2, so the GCF for the whole expression is just 2. So if we use that to factor, then what are we going to get? Well, 8x, factor out of 2, we're left with the 4x, and then minus 6, factor out of 2, we're left with the minus 3, which is what we're hoping to have, right? Because we had 4x minus 3 over here, so what's in the parentheses here should be the same as what's in the parentheses over here, and it is 4x minus 3. So going back up here then, what do we have? Plus 2 times the quantity 4x minus 3. And then, as always, the last step with factoring by grouping, is to look and say, okay, here's one term, here's another term. These two terms have the factor 4x minus 3 in common, so let's pull that common factor out. And when we do, we're going to be left with x plus 2, okay, x here plus 2 here, that quantity multiplied by the quantity 4x minus 3, which again is the common factor that we just pulled out. So that's the solution here, and if we have 4x squared plus 5x minus 6, then what we just found out is we can factor that into x plus 2 times 4x minus 3.